Earlier this year, Rice University released an analysis of HISD students 6 years after what should have been their high school graduation. Only 31% of the students had graduated from college or an associate degree or workforce. For me, that means there are students outside of the 10 or 40 or 50 other schools. So just because the school is not on IR, so the first thing is whoever's on this board of manager has got to come in and look at the district as a whole and not just the IR schools because we have students being underserved. Second, the board ought to look like the racial and gender diversity of the student population of HISD. This is a district that has a makeup, and the managers ought to reflect that. Now they ought to have some expertise. We need somebody that knows something about children development. We ought to have somebody that knows something about curriculum. HISD operates on what they call an independent, you just out there by yourself model. That doesn't work. If somebody's doing something good, that's great, but that doesn't translate to any place else in the district. The next thing, somebody ought to have some knowledge of organizational structure to evaluate whether or not the organizational model HISD is using works. Somebody ought to know something about construction since HISD got billions of dollars. And I think this board of managers ought to give some serious consideration as to why HISD is talking about they're going to go out in 2019 with a bond election when they're laying off teachers. We need somebody with broad public school finance knowledge. How in heaven's name do you not do a 5-year run and it surprises you when you end up in recapture? And you're saying, oh my God, this is the first time we knew about it, or that we're going to go. That means you just didn't have budget expertise on the board to ask the staff the right kind of questions. We need somebody that has some understanding of data analytics, so that because they get so many reports. Somebody with some expertise on technology in education.
And don't forget
Special ed. And let me just, the board of managers ought to look at partnerships. If you go back to the Rice study as a baseline, it says if you expose students to, AP calls it pre-AP, public school student generically, let's call it pre-dual credit and dual credit. If you expose them to it, they are more likely to go to college on a timely basis. So if we use that, and there's a 2012 study that was done by the Houston Endowment, that's the board of managers I'd like to see in terms of expertise, diversity, and a commitment to improving the district on a whole basis, not just looking at the 10 and 40 other, because it underserves the students who are out there. And this board should be looking at, so the model HISD is built on was essentially the magnet school model for purposes of desegregation. That was our desegregation model. It's probably run its course and the model is imploding, and we need a new model of what makes an effective education apparatus inside what we know as the Houston Independent School District. That for me is the important things. The students, not the buildings.
Yeah. So let me reflect back, make sure I heard you correctly. In terms of criteria, ideally the board should have people who look like the racial and gender diversity of the student population of HISD. People who know about child development, curriculum, organizational structure, construction, school finance, data analytics, education, technology, and special education.
Yes. And
in terms of what should they be focused on, what should their plan of work be, that they need to come in and look at the district as a whole, not just at the IR schools. They need to reconsider HISD's deseg-oriented magnet school model because it may have run its course. They need to reconsider the 2019 bond recommendation. They need to create 5-year budget projections on a going forward basis. And they need to consider partnerships to evaluate the district on a whole basis. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, and just add in there, look at dual credit development models to partnerships. at the high school level across the entire district. They have some now. Every high school in HISD should actually be early college high school.
But I'm confused. I'm really confused because the whole notion of all this, from my understanding, taking what Ms. Galloway presented, that a board of managers has never worked anywhere, and this is your idea. Your idea is that because this is happening in your school district, we are going to come in and take over, and we can do it better. This community elected their board of managers based on the criteria they saw fit in a democratic way. So what I can't understand is, no attack on you, but I'm just trying to, and I understand what, by getting the input, but my question, I'm confused because I'm going, if you take it over because you can do it better, why do we need to tell you how to do it better? This was the point of you doing it. So my good friend Professor Robinson has to lay down that they should know these things?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
So it's a fair question. The question is, if the agency knows so much, why are you asking for input? There are really two ways I can do my job. I can do my job where I don't talk to you, or I can do my job where I talk to you.
I got that part.
And so this is me. So I don't have control over what are the legal elements that the agency is responsible for. I don't have control over that. The only thing I have control over is how do I go about doing the work that is put on my plate. And in my mind, regardless of how wise I might think I am, I know that the wisdom of community is greater than the wisdom of one. And so it will always make sense to me with whatever tasks are apportioned to me to try to do that in a way that's in communication with folks rather than do that in a way that's in isolation. Do I have ideas of what, makes sense to all these questions? Of course I do. I'm not coming here because I'm without ideas or without having conducted some of my own research. But I'm coming here because I trust your wisdom as people who live here, and I think that there is value in your wisdom, and that anything that's not that would just be arrogance. Again, I don't have a say in what job has been put on my plate. I guess I could quit. That's how I would have to say.
It's not about you. You represent an agency, and you're talking about the law. So no, this is not an attack on you, and we certainly appreciate you being here to have the dialogue and get the feedback. So let's establish that, right? But I guess from a bureaucratic perspective, the law is saying we're doing this because we, the Texas Education Agency, believe that your local elected Board of Education has failed to adequately govern in a way that will educate kids to a level that we find and has been established by our legislature.
That's actually not what the law says. The law says that the legislature has identified that any campus that goes beyond this threshold, this is a job that is a portion of TEA. So TEA actually didn't make that judgment call.
Got it. I'm a lobbyist. I work in Austin. Got it. Right. But my question is, right? I understand that.
So
my question is,
but I just want to clarify. You're suggesting that this is grown out of TEA's wisdom. The TEA passed this law.
You're following the law. I got that. And you're following the law. But my point is, the law indicates that you all are an agency that because you're taking over, that obviously it would appear to me that you have these things in place that would then bring about a turnaround, right? That this, in my mind, right, that this ought to be the wisdom that we're gonna come in and we're gonna turn these schools around. Now, if we're identifying criteria, and again, it's good that yes, you're talking and you're engaged in the community, but honestly, right, the truth of the matter is, I'm actually interested, and most of these people actually probably don't agree with me on my public education views, by the way, right? I'm interested in what's going to bring about the best results for kids. My expectation is that if you coming in to take over, you have figured that out. And you're bringing in the best of the best experts to come in here and turn these schools around. Not you personally. Huh?
You'd be raising hell if that happened. Yeah, he would be raising hell.
Who, me?
Yeah, no, whoever agrees with you.
No, the people that disagree with me would be raising hell.
Because somebody, if this gentleman, AJ, comes in here and brings his own management and this is what we're gonna do, and this is how you're gonna do it, and so forth, we would be tearing it up. Wait a minute, we haven't had a chance to say anything, how you gonna come up here? TEA does not have all the wisdom.
I mean,
That's correct.
He never said that.
They don't run schools.
Yeah. Come on.
They don't run schools.
no. And my point is bring in somebody that does run schools, if that's what we're trying to do. But I hear what you're saying, Dr. Good, and people would raise hell. I'm on the other side of that aisle. I would not be raising hell. I'd be.
TEA appoints the overseers
Not
with the
the
board of managers input from the community, and this is how they chose the people that
So-
they did choose.
Yeah, so I wanna go to people who have more responses to my questions. But before I do it, one thing I do is, in the time that I've been with the agency, there's one board that I've kind of led through this whole life cycle. Where, I came in right after it was declared that they would need a board of managers. And then one of my first tasks was to work with the community and have conversations with them, the way I'm having conversations with y'all, to put in place a board of managers. The job of the board of managers is, came about as a result of conversations like these. What are the things the board of managers need to focus on? Which the community have wisdom and knowledge. Like you're giving me history. The gentleman who's walking out was giving me history that because you've been here, you have that history. I don't have that history. And so I worked with that community, heard their history, did the community engagement. We put in place the board of managers. At that time, they'd had IR campuses for years, and frankly, the governance was in disarray, which is why Board of Managers was put in place. We are now in the process of starting to transition out that Board of Managers 2 years later. The the governance is no longer in disarray, and there are no more IR campuses in the district.
Okay, what district is that?
Edgewood near San Antonio.